Good morning, Northshore. It's Thursday, January 6th, and Happy New Year. It's our first time together since the new year and since our winter break. I want to begin by thanking each of you for taking the time to join me this morning and thanking you for just showing up all the time and supporting your students and our schools and our community. So I this morning thought that I would endeavor to respond to as many questions as I'm able to. We put out a note on social media to share questions that you have. And my hope this morning is to answer as many as I can within the next 30 minutes. As I do need to leave after this meeting to go teach English at Bothell High School. So I'm looking forward to joining the Cougars for a great morning of literature and composition, I think. And that really sort of leads into the conversation around our commitment here in the district. And that's a commitment that every adult here shares to keep our schools open. And we want to make sure that we're able to keep our schools open as safe as possible for all our students, our staff, and our community members, which include the families our students and staff go home to. So I want to share some data and then respond to questions. And I think that what we saw from the volume of questions is that there will be an opportunity that we're going to put together for next week where we'll hold a webinar type forum where I and several staff members will be able to answer as many questions from the community in a live webinar setting that we're able to, because I know that if we can make sure that questions are answered, often what we fear is what we don't know. And we want to make sure that everything we know, you know, because we really count on you to be thought partners with us throughout this entire pandemic. And I think it's important also this morning to acknowledge we've been working through this pandemic now for a couple of years, and we've got this. I know that together we can come up with the strategies and plans and support one another as we work through the challenges that we have ahead of us, which truly are fewer than the challenges we've already worked through. So I'm confident we've got the right team, the right spirit, and a collective will to stay in the light as we work through this challenge. So let me share some data with you this morning. Oh, and I also want to share for any staff that are watching this morning, we're going to do a staff open webinar forum prior to the community open webinar forum. So we'll do one, we're not sure yet, we're working on scheduling the days next week, but we'll do one for staff earlier in the week and then for the community after that, because we recognize that our staff really need to have answers, as they often, our teachers, our secretaries, office managers, our food and nutrition services folks, our principals, are often counted on to be the primary information providers to parents, students, and the community. So we want to make sure staff questions are answered first, and then we'll do our forum for the community. So today is more of a high-level sort of overview of where we are and an attempt to sort of clarify our next steps. So I want to share the first data point, which is that we yesterday at Popkini were able to test 450 reflex or confirmatory tests. And I want to thank our testing team. That was a much larger number than we usually test, but we also recognize we're coming off of our 2-week winter break. So just want to remind folks that testing, the Popkini testing, which we did yesterday, that continues today and tomorrow, those are a Wednesday, Thursday, Friday cadence for PCR confirmatory tests, are for Northshore students and Northshore staff. And I'm supposed to read this clearly, who are symptomatic or who are close contacts, as well as those who need the reflex or confirmatory testing as a result of being in a positive batch. So those are the criteria for going to the Popkini testing site. We encourage you to pre-register for that, and you're generally notified that you are either a close contact or that you're in a positive batch. So if you're able to pre-register, that really supports our testing team at Popkini to move through their process quicker and get everyone in and out a little quicker, which we all would love the gift of time, I think. So that's our confirmatory testing. And as this is a time now of Omicron, which is our new variant, I want to acknowledge that it appears to be much more highly transmissible, although we hope less detrimental or less impactful in terms of a disease. I am not a medical health professional, so we're taking all of our cues and our information from the health department, and they have been fabulous partners with us and continue to be, and their expertise is in the area of public health. So we are working very closely with them, and just want you to know that we're doing everything we can to maintain a safe and healthy environment. Alex, if you have a minute, would you pull up the dashboard for me on the outcome of batch testing yesterday? Because that's sort of our newest data point. Thanks, Alex. I appreciate it. And for those of you watching maybe for the first time, Alex, do you want to show people how to get there from the website, just in case somebody's not as familiar with the site? Well, the oops probably. Well, there you have it. We're having Finalsite, the website providers, been struggling a little with their software, but thanks, Alex. It looks like you got us back to where we need to be. So you would go to the data dashboard part of the website, and then Alex is going to hit on testing summary. Left. There we go. Thanks, Alex. This gives a by school, and these would have been the schools. Again, we batch test a third of the district Monday, a third of the district Tuesday, and a third on Wednesday. And so we did 762 batches yesterday. And out of the 762 batches, 125 were positive yesterday, which is just over 16%. However, there are 10 samples in each batch. Thanks, Alex. You can pull that. There are 10 students or staff, 10 swabs in each batch. So it could be one person in the batch that's positive, or 5, or we don't know. And that's the purpose of the confirmatory PCR testing at Popkini. So I also want to share, because I think that there are some folks who may be alarmed at the dramatic increase in the number of positive batches at 125. But we did change the size of the batch. And let me share with you why we did that. Previously, we've been running at 15 samples per batch, but because we know Omicron is much more transmissible, and trying to minimize the number of potential students or staff who need to do confirmatory tests as a result of a positive batch, we've run the numbers from 15 to 10. We still need to maintain a fiscal solvency. The health department is funding this, but we still want to make sure that the batch testing is obviously economically able to be continued. So we are going with 10. So theoretically, there's a 50%, right, from 15 to 10 change. So just know that it's a smaller batch size by 50%, but 125 positive batches is still significant. Having said that, we are monitoring, and today those folks will have been notified and will be able to do confirmatory testing. It's also possible that a positive batch could be a false positive, right? So we're kind of working our way through the data, remembering that we need to make sure we take the time we need to make accurate observations with correct data. So that's our most current data update. And our commitment to you is whatever we know, you know. So you'll see it in real time on our website. And as Alex showed you, anyone in the community can go to that and identify where we are. Please rest assured also and know that I and our senior team and our board, we have an internal dashboard as we look at numbers at a particular school or at a particular grade level within a school. So we're going to be looking at this not necessarily first as an entire district, but where are pockets where it seems more or less prevalent, the Omicron virus. So we're on it. I've never seen so much viral data, and it's so important for us to stay on it in real time. So let me turn to some questions. And I want to start with student questions. I've received a lot of student emails, And I love that, right? That is our focus, is our students. So, and I also want to say a little tongue in cheek that I appreciate the feedback from students on our recent snow days. In particular, I had several students share their thoughts on black ice and planning and driving tips. So I really appreciate that. So thank you, students, for staying connected. So I have several students have emailed concerned about the spread of the virus and just wanting to make sure that their peers, so students, if you're listening, pay attention. Some of your student friends are concerned that not everyone is always wearing their mask correctly. And we want to make sure that that happens. And it's important for personal safety as well as the safety of the school community. And we all need to do that right now. And so just know students are concerned about each other. So let's make sure we maintain our health and safety protocols as we would like. Another student question is, are we going to be going back online, Dr. Reid, and how much warning will we have? Well, I can't answer that yet. The health department will be weighing in and providing us direction on whether the number of cases justifies closing a classroom or a school, or at some point, perhaps the entire district, for pausing that. At this point, I don't see that in the next couple days, but we may or may not have a lot of warning. As I've shared with you, I was up early at 4:30 this morning on our Weather Watch team call, and the data from yesterday was still trickling in. So it's important that I be able to see all the batches from a particular school to make that decision. And we're trying to move that process up a little bit. The reason it was a little later today was because the testing on the prior days has also been that we had the 2-hour late start, and there are more districts doing some type of testing now. So it's slowing down the processing. But as soon as we have data and can make a thoughtful decision, we will communicate it. But it may or may not have much warning. And this is Lauren that's asking. There may or may not be much warning, but our fervent wish and hope, and we're working so hard to keep schools open. We would prefer not to go back online at this point, if we can at all do it safely in health. Another student, James, is asking, can you address mental health? People are really struggling. I couldn't agree more. And I think one of the keys right now is staying connected to one another. It's so important that we look out for one another, that we're kind to one another, and that we continue to lift one another up to show up as our best selves. And I think that we all are having days where it's easier to do that and days where it's harder to do that. So I would encourage you, if you're feeling more anxious than normal, reach out to a friend, reach out to a trusted adult. And each of our schools has now a mental health counselor or mental health support lines available. And we also have counselors in all schools in the district now. So there is help out there. And just know that we're going to get through this. We've come so far. And we have, as I said, full confidence that we're going to get through this in a healthy and safe way. So, and if there's a mental health idea, James, that you have that would help, email me, email a teacher, email your principal, and we'll take a look at it. And if it's something we can implement, we're all in. The next question, Vanessa, can you confirm that vaccinated students that batch test positive can now get a PCR test without leaving school? So Vanessa, yes, that's correct. Our testing team, and I want to read this so I don't give you false information. So our testing team is saying that we're continuing our batch testing program, obviously, as a proactive and layered measure to keep students and staff safe in the building. The whole idea around testing is to keep school in session in the buildings, right? So please remember, COVID antibodies can stay in the system for up to 90 days. So students and staff who have tested positive for COVID, who already have had COVID, for example, should wait 90 days before testing again. So that's another sort of important piece. We don't want someone who maybe had COVID a month ago to be in the batch testing and have a positive batch, but not really be still COVID active, if that makes sense. You'll get more communication and information about that. Otherwise, participating in the batch before 90 days passes could obviously create a positive batch. I would say that, yes, you can, if you're vaccinated, get your confirmatory PCR test on campus now, is my understanding. The next question, Omicron is highly transmissible, even among fully vaccinated individuals. Right now, why are you allowing vaccinated students who are positive to come to school? Right now, if they're positive, if they've tested positive, we're not. If they're in a positive batch, we are until they get either a negative confirmatory or a positive confirmatory test, and then would be responsive accordingly. And as I mentioned earlier, we're following the Department of Health guidelines on that. Student question, what are you doing to improve ventilation? And right now, and I know it's cold, but we're having a lot of windows and doors open. And for those buildings that don't have outside windows and outside doors, the HVAC systems, which are the air cooling, heating systems and filtering systems, have been set to have 50% air exchange, inside-outside air on a regular basis. And the filters have been upgraded and are changed more frequently. So we feel that our HVAC systems are really functioning well at this point. Question from another student, why isn't the district following the new CDC quarantine guidelines? Great question. As I meet with our students and parents, one of the things I always need to explain is that the CDC is a national agency, but when we have to be responsive to our King County and Snohomish County health departments who take direction from the state Department of Health. And at this time, Washington State, King County, and Snohomish County have not modified their guidance to us, which is the guidance we have to follow. So I know that sounds like a long answer to a short question, but until the state provides us different guidance, we have to stay with the guidance we've been provided. And there are links on our website to that guidance, but at this time, I believe it's still 10 days with testing options to return earlier. The next question, will Northshore host booster clinics for staff and for students ages 12 and up now that they qualify for booster shots? So what I can say is that our vaccination team, and I just need to pause for a minute and say, I've done this work for a few years, but to have testing teams and vaccination teams, in many ways, our school district has begun to feel a little like a mini health department. And while we're doing all the other things we need to do. So if you have a minute to just thank a staff member from your role in the community, please take a moment and do that, because every single staff member in the district has taken on more duties, more responsibilities at a time of heightened anxiety and at times heightened negative energy, all to try to keep our schools open. So if you have an opportunity to thank a staff member, please take a moment to do that. We have the best staff in the world, and they've maintained this upbeat, can-do Northshore attitude, even with all of the additional duties. So just want to pause a moment and recognize our team. And I also want to recognize so many parent volunteers. I know if it wasn't for our parent volunteers, our vaccine clinics and booster clinics and testing wouldn't be possible. So it's been a community effort. And sometimes we don't pause maybe long enough to be grateful for that. And it's often in the most difficult times that we have the most to be grateful for. So just want to remind us of that. But I do want to get back on point here for a moment, which is to say that we are planning a clinic next Sunday, January 16th, for either first doses for families or boosters for families. And so that's in the works. You should hear more about that coming up. I also know that parents and guardians have asked about plans for school-based clinics, and staff are still working the logistics out for this. Big shout out to the Shoreline Fire Department They've been a fabulous partner in all of this. And I mean, again, community partners, right? So they are working with us in our communications department. Lisa Youngblood Hall and her team, Alex Clark, Miriam Juritz, are working really hard to pull together the school-based clinics. And it looks like we're likely to do those at hub sites, maybe not at every school, but at schools that were within clusters. So we're excited about that. If you do want to opt back into testing, the batch testing, I know we've had a lot of interest in that. Please just email your principal, and that will be something, or the school nurse at your student's school, or the office manager at your student's school. And that information should be, they'll work with you on that. So that was another question we've gotten a lot of, is how do I opt my student in to batch testing? Because I think there's more of a concern right now with a more transmissible Omicron variant. And the more people we're able to test, the more likely it is we're going to be able to stay open, because we'll be able to identify those asymptomatic cases more quickly. Next student concern. Oh, this is about wearing masks correctly. So just students, remember, wear your mask correctly. And I know it's hard. There's sometimes we just get busy and we forget. And I know we all want to do the right thing. So just remind each other gently, or I know even myself, I need reminding sometimes. But let's just take those little steps. Because honestly, little acts of kindness and correctness lead to large possibilities, right? It's those repeated disciplined acts of small acts that enable us to do really big, great things. So question about when will the district cancel or pause extracurricular activities? We have no plans currently to pause extracurricular activities. We're working really hard to keep those moving. In fact, the State Athletic Association, the WIAA, a week or two prior to the winter break, instituted a new requirement for high impact sports that they had to be tested 3 times a week. And this has created another whole testing opportunity, shall we say. And the number of rapid antigen tests required to do that statewide is enormous. And the supply chain for those tests has been somewhat constricted, both because of weather and all sorts of reasons, I'm sure. So we're going to have to prioritize the use of those tests that we do have, the rapid antigen tests. And it's my understanding that our priority right now is our high school sports and extracurricular activities, DECA, FBLA, those types of activities. Excuse me. We want to make sure we keep those going. So we don't have any plans to pause high school athletics activities, co-curriculars, arts programs. Those we're really going to do our very level best to keep going. We may at times need to pause. I'm going to get just a quick drink of water. We may at times need to pause a middle school activity. And again, we're using the word pause intentionally. It's not close, but it might be pause. And that would only be based on either number of cases or number of available rapid antigen tests. Thank you. I'll take looks like I've got a couple minutes before I need to head to Bothell. Let me just look at the questions. A lot of the parent questions, honestly, are very similar to the student questions. I guess I will generalize. There have been a lot of questions about what data, like what is the number that you're going to use to decide whether you're going to go remote or online, either in a classroom or a school or the district. And right now, the health department has not given us a specific percentage or a specific number. I'm going to be on the phone with them later today. And I want the community to know that illness ratios and percentages are not new. For many, many years, if the districts have had to report data on the flu or how many people are sick to the health department. And every year there's been at some point a threshold, whether that's 10%, 15, 20, 25, whatever that percentage may turn out to be. That would be the number of cases in terms of people being ill. And the health department's going to make that determination. That's not a unique North Shore determination. Now, having said that, I can only see, as I think about two pathways that may cause us to change direction. I just want to be honest about those with you and transparent so we all understand that, since it's just us this morning. The one is the number of cases, right? If our cases continue to rise and the health department says that presents a risk that's too high to maintain in-person school, they may say you need to shut down this class or this school or the district. So the number of cases are important for us to monitor. And those are the number of actual cases in our schools. All right. Then the second issue that I have to look at is, are we able to staff our schools? And the staffing shortage, just by the sheer number of staff that might be sick on any given day in a particular school or a particular department, may cause us to have to make adjustments. So those are the two things I'm weighing. It's the disease count, right? The virus count, which we work with the health department on, and then the staffing availability. Do we have staff, enough sufficient staff to staff the schools? And as importantly, to support the classroom. We are staying really close. I think poor Dugan last night, we were back and forth looking at transportation data. And again, looking at it at 4 o'clock this morning, because we need to make sure our bus drivers are able, are not getting sick, so they're able to continue driving. And our mechanics who take care of our buses and our principals, right? So there are a lot of moving parts. And I just want to remind the community that it's the number of cases and it's the availability of staff. And above all of that, it's our deep commitment in every role, every adult in the system, to keep our schools open. So we're going to continue monitoring that data. We're asking you to continue to work with us on the health and safety protocols, just as you have for the last couple of years. And we're going to get through this like champs. After all, we're North Shore, right? And we do this, meet challenges every day, and we'll meet these challenges as well. So from me to you at this point, you'll hear more about our community webinar forum next week. Remember, the community webinar forum will follow the staff webinar forum, because I want to make sure we have that opportunity with staff first, and then we'll have an opportunity with the community next week. But until then, I wish you all the best and continue to have a fabulous winter. I know there's no snow for the moment, which is great. At least down here. Go to the mountains, please, to visit that. But in the meantime, most importantly, let's remember to lift each other up and be kind to one another. We'll get through this together. Thank you for joining me this morning.